I'm recording. Is it recording? Great. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. This is our information session for our school psychology program. So we welcome you on this Friday morning. I'm going to share my screen in terms of our slides and our presentation. And slideshow. So we welcome you. So for the purpose of this morning, we're going to inform you about our program and also what school psychologists do, what our profession is about. And we'll have our introductions. We have our graduate assistants and a couple of our students. So we'll start with that. So Leslyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslyn Charles. I am currently in my second year of the School Psychology Specialist Program, and I'm also the Graduate Assistant for Project Crystal.
Great. And we have Ian Lee.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Lee. I am a fifth year PhD student in public health, and I am the Graduate Assistant for Project DIG in school psychology.
Great, thank you. Ms. Amanda Radigan.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm a first year graduate student in the school psychology program. Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda. And I see we have our faculty joining us, Phil Lazarus.
Yes, hi there. I'm Phil Lazarus, and the internship coordinator for our school psychology program. And you will typically see me when you're in your third year and you're very, very involved in your internship. And we make sure that all our students get paid internships all across the state, as well as in all 50 states, if they wish.
Thanks, Phil. And I think I saw Shale Griffith.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Shale Griffith. I'm an assistant professor in the school psychology program. I am currently most often teaching cognitive assessment or various cognitive assessment courses. And I do a lot of work with the Center for Children and Families, other kind of clinical and research work as well, and have some students involved with me for that. So happy to see all of you here. Hope you learn a lot this morning.
Thanks, Shale. And I forgot to really introduce myself. So I'm Andy Pham. I'm the program director of the school psychology program. I've been here since 2011, and a lot of my work has been on looking at neurocognitive as well as social cultural factors in children's mental health and learning. And I do work within Miami-Dade schools. So we welcome you today. So just to start a little bit about our program, I did want to get a sense of what you know about school psychology and what do school psychologists do. So let me just put up a quick poll. And also, feel free to write in the chat, what do you believe school psychologists do? And I know Ian and Leslie can monitor the chat. So if there are also any questions, feel free to write in the chat. And yes, the PowerPoint and the recording, Sonia, will be available. So we'll send that out. All right, so people are filling it out. So I'll just share the poll. So a good number of you have an idea or somewhat of an idea what school psychologists do. A few know a little bit, and one said yes. So that's school psychology can be a rather enigmatic field, but our main goal is really to promote learning and mental health of students. And there are many ways that we do that. So we do a variety of skills in terms of assessment, we implement interventions, we do counseling, we do consultation. So when we engage in assessment, it's pretty much just trying to understand the child. And so we gather information from a variety of sources, whether through interviews, through doing a record review, and also through evaluation. So oftentimes the students we work with maybe having some reading difficulties, or if they're struggling to adapt into a classroom environment, we try to gather as much data as we can to understand the child and try to inform services or support or instruction in the classroom. We also collaborate with parents and teachers. So we do provide a lot of direct services with children and adolescents, but we also provide an indirect form of service. And to do that, we work with parents and teachers so that if it's a class-wide problem, what is it that we can do to work with the teacher so the teacher will work and be supportive in the classroom. A good part of our role is conducting evaluations. And as Dr. Griffin mentioned in terms of the courses she teaches, we train a lot of you in terms of conducting academic assessments, cognitive assessments, social emotional. So these are more individualized, standardized testing. There are also other forms of testing evaluations that we conduct. That is one of our main roles as a school psychologist. And a good number of our courses are specialized in that way. We also develop and implement social emotional interventions, behavior intervention plans, particularly for those who may demonstrate disruptive behaviors or is just struggling emotionally for whatever reason. If they're feeling anxious or depressed, then we work with students to do counseling or classroom or school-wide plans. And also being part of a crisis intervention team. So in terms of whether doing risk assessments or suicide risk assessments or other instances where we would be part of a team to prevent as well as intervene in those situations. We train our students in how to deal with that. Dr. Lasses, want to share more about what school psychologists do?
Well, right now, school psychologists are in very high demand, and we have a shortage both within South Florida as well as nationwide. And so if you do apply and are accepted into our program, you do well, you'll be guaranteed of a paid internship as well as a job, upon graduation. I think Dr. Pham was very clear in terms of many of the kinds of things that we do and what we're really trying to push for as we enter the next decade is that we really want to work not just with youngsters with developmental disabilities, but we really want to work with the entire population of a school in order to promote emotional well-being, academic success, and mental health of children.
Absolutely. So there's a huge need for school psychologists. We're also described as school-based mental health professionals. So along with counselors and social workers and as teachers, we also are part of a team. So we have areas of expertise so that, in trying to provide a wide range of services support, not just for students who are at risk, but every students in the classroom, particularly to prevent problems from happening. So absolutely. And it's a good segue also, as Dr. Lazarus mentioned, in terms of what is our job outlook. So there's a plethora of jobs in Florida because of the shortages statewide as well as nationally. In terms of the outcomes of our students and alum, a majority of our students obviously work in schools. So we also have had a small number of student or alum do work in clinical settings, like the Center for Children and Families, for example. Also, we've had alum who pursue graduate study in school psychology or special education or related fields. According to the U.S. News and World Report, I actually just looked it up this morning, so it's top 40 best jobs. I think it was the top 10 a few years ago. So it is also high in terms of the social services profession. So definitely high in terms of demand, as well as in terms of our alum. Graduates from our program are certified in the state of Florida. So when you graduate from our program, you would send your transcripts to the Florida Department of Education. So certification to be employed in a school district. And so you are trained to work with pre-K to 12. Although there may be instances where if you're working with adults, college age, that is also possible given your training. In Florida, this is rather unique in the sense that students or graduates from our program with their specialist degree, which we'll talk a little bit more about, are eligible to engage in private practice. However, they would need to have at least 2 years of additional supervised experience after they graduate from the program to be eligible for licensure. And so licensure occurs in the Department of Health. So it's a bit different from the Department of Education. So not every state allows that. Mostly, doctoral level psychologists practice, but within a select number of states, particularly Florida, those with their specialist degree can be licensed as a school psychologist. All right, and so that's the job outlook. A little bit about our program. As I mentioned, we offer the Education Specialist Degree, or EDS. It is considered the minimum degree to be a certified school psychologist. There are also other related degrees or similar names, but Education Specialist is probably the more common name. We offer 73 credits. We are considered an in-person program, so we do want to emphasize that, because a lot of our questions are we an online program, or do we offer a good number of online courses? We offer a few online courses, but we describe ourselves as an in-person program. And so in terms of our model, we promote more scientific practitioner, understanding research, engaging in research to inform practice, culture responsive practices, so working with diverse, culturally and linguistically diverse students, as well as engaging social justice, so advocating for parents and children whose needs may not be met. We are a nationally approved as well as the state accredited program. So NASP is our national organization, which stands for National Association of School Psychologists. And so students who graduate from a program, when they also pass the Praxis, which is the national certification exam, they're eligible to receive the NCSP, which is the National Certification for School Psychologists. Students can enroll on a full-time basis as well as or a part-time basis. To graduate in 3 years does require intensive full-time study. So that does require fall, spring, and semester enrollment. However, if students enroll in the program and they're working full-time during the day, we recommend part-time study. We don't really recommend students enrolling as well as taking a full course load, just because of the intensity of our courses. But depending on your situation, we do work with students in developing a curriculum or a schedule that meets your needs. So we do have a majority of our students enrolled full-time, but we do have people who enroll part-time. That's usually our teachers. So it is flexible. Oh, we'll talk about admission requirements. I see some questions in the chat, and I think hopefully some of our
yeah, there's a lot of questions in the chat.
Okay.
And I've responded to a number of them that I can give a short answer to.
Yeah, go ahead.
But in regard to students receive an educational specialist degree, and that was a little bit too long to respond to in the chat. But yes, the educational specialist degree is a degree halfway between the master's degree and the doctorate degree. And so our program, as Dr. Pham said, is 73 hours of credit. The first 2 years in the program, one engages in coursework if you're going full-time. And then in the third year, you're engaged in a 1-year internship that particularly starts in September and ends in June of the school year. So that's what the educational specialist degree is. It's a robust degree, and you learn, how to engage in integrated and comprehensive skills in the profession of school psychology. And you're also supervised in your internship by a fully certified school psychologist. And in addition to that, during your second year, you engage in 2 practicums, and that is 150 hours per semester, and you're in the schools for that period of time.
Great, thanks, Phil. And then just answer maybe 1 or 2 questions I've noticed. The GRE is not required. We've removed it from the program. The general knowledge test, which is more the state requirement, we also removed it from the program. So there are no exams required for admission. All right. Also a good segue, as Dr. Lasmus mentioned, in terms of our program requirements. So we have a good number of courses related to psychological foundations, so understanding, obviously child development, educational psychology. One of our other faculty members, Dr. Pelias, teaches that. Psychopathology, so related to disorders, abnormal behaviors, as well as cultural and linguistic diversity. We also have courses related to education foundations, knowing instructional strategies and practices in the classroom, behavioral management, as well as our introduction of school psychology, which I teach this semester. We also have literacy courses too. Dr. Griffith teaches primarily our assessment courses. Do you want to share more about some of the things that you do in terms of your assessment courses, Shale?
Sure. So I would say that we have a kind of progressive sequence of assessment courses. So it's a big thing to learn psychoeducational assessment. So we kind of take time over the 2 years that you're taking courses to slowly grow those skills. The classes are a mix of kind of discussion-based, lecture-based work, as well as practice work, right? So we do a lot of hands-on practice with the materials and with working with data that's collected with the materials. So it's good because it's a little bit less sitting and talking and a little bit more doing than some of your other classes. And I find students tend to enjoy that.
Absolutely, thanks. And in addition to that, students also take counseling courses. So either we have our school psychology adjunct faculty teach, or courses that are taught by our counselor education faculty. Research and measurement, we do have statistics courses in our program, as well as our foundations in research. We do want to make sure that students have a good solid foundation of research, being able to understand research studies. They're also able to work with faculty to help or assist with research projects. So that could be through a presentation, publication, anything related to maybe some of the work that we're doing, or if students want to do more of an independent or a project related to some of their interests or related interests, that would be a great way to work with faculty to help support that. I know Amanda has been working with Dr. Lazarus. Amanda, do you want to share a little bit about what you've been doing with your directed study or your research so far?
Sure. So my background is a little bit different than most people, I guess, entering this program. So I do have a legal background. I have a law degree. So my study with Dr. Lazarus has been combining bullying and then how it's interpreted from a legal perspective, like the requirements and how schools can then avoid liability and sort of best position themselves to be most successful when it comes to students and their responses to bullying.
Great, thanks.
And
Sorry, I
Amanda's
didn't mean to
also-
put you in the spot, but thanks for sharing that. Yeah, Dr. Lazarus.
And Amanda's also, we've also done some research together in terms of, you can tell them about the impact of COVID-19 on student mental health. Please tell us a little bit about that, Amanda.
Oh, I'm even more on the spot. So I did research with Dr. Lazarus and exactly what he just said. And yeah, we kind of found out sort of the trends and the fact that basically we need more thought, more study into it. And just some of the not requirements, the what's what I'm looking for. Oh my God, I'm sweating now. Some of the suggestions that are coming from both mental health professionals and governmental agencies into how we can best serve our students, and coming from this COVID-19, this shutdown situation. So yeah.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. So a lot of courses are our program, but at the same time, you'll learn a lot in terms of the breadth as well as the depth of training that you'll receive. And as Dr. Lazarus mentioned, in terms of the field experience, our first year, the students engage in more observation, just understanding more of the roles and functions. We are trying to incorporate a little bit more of the practical aspect, but we haven't really had a chance to do that. But the field experience comes in the second year, where students continue to shadow with the school psychologist, but also engage in direct service. So learning and applying a lot of what they've learned in their courses into the school setting. So that does occur more in the second year. And we place students. So if students have a particular or preferred preference, a lot of our students tend to engage in their practicum within Miami-Dade County Public Schools, Broward County, as well as Palm Beach. And then the final year, or your culminating year, as Dr. Lazarus mentioned, is the internship. So that is a competitive process where students apply for internship. We don't place students, but students apply for internship. But we prepare students on that journey. And we've actually, yesterday, we had a session with the second year students on applying or preparing to apply for internship, and strategies and tips to help with that. So, yep, so we have courses in terms of foundations, applied courses, as well as field experiences as part of our program. It's part of the reason why we have a lot of credit hours. So we want to make sure students are well-trained and competent, because a lot of these things, you're pretty much entrusted by the families to support students in the schools. And I kind of already mentioned in terms of our field experiences, in terms of hours, and Dr. Match has already mentioned. And also, Dr. Griffith has done a wonderful job in promoting more opportunities for students to work in Center for Children and Families. Shale, do you want to share a little bit more, if you can? Yeah.
So over the past few years, we've been working especially with a program called Summer Academy, which is it's a summer treatment program, so a therapeutic program for young children. These are preschool age children about to enter kindergarten who are having some behavioral difficulties of some kind. And so the idea is that they attend a full day program during the summer, which helps with intensive behavioral supports to get them ready for kindergarten. And we also work with parents once a week in a parent group to teach parent strategies as well. And so we've had students involved in the kind of intake process for that program, which gives a chance to get a lot of hands-on experience with psychoeducational assessment, since each child gets a full assessment before entering the program, as well as getting some practice with intervention in the classroom itself in an intensive setting, as well as parent intervention if that's something that's interesting to students. So I always welcome as much participation as people are interested in with those kinds of things, as well as the research that is related to that program that we're also engaging.
Great. And yes, and some of our students are participating in the summer treatment program. They're doing in the summer. So there are some summer experiences, and you can get practicum credit. You have to be supervised by a school psychologist to receive that credit. But yes, so we are expanding our field experiences so that being prepared for internship is one of our goals. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Lester, do you have any?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in regard to letters of recommendation. We typically like at least one letter of recommendation, and perhaps two, from former professors that you've had in your program of studies. Of course, we understand that if you've been a working practitioner for 10 years, you may not have any contact with former professors. So we're appreciative of that. And getting letters of recommendation from your principal, your supervisor, is always looked at very favorably. So if you can, and if the situation is right, do at least get one academic, reference, because we do want to see that. And some faculty feel stronger about that than others, but I think that would be very helpful, for you. And there was another question in regard to doing your internship in a private school. And we want to make sure that all our students have experience from K to 12, and in many instances pre-K to 12. And they have a variety of populations that they're working with. Culturally and linguistically diverse populations, which of course you'll get in Florida, as well as minority and minoritized populations. And we want to make sure that you have as many types of experiences as possible. So it may be a little bit challenging in a private school, but we certainly have had practicum students in private schools, but you have to be supervised by at least a school psychologist, and they should be on site, and you should get appropriate supervision on a kind of a day-by-day basis, especially during your first semester. So sometimes that can be challenging, in a private school, but we could discuss it. Almost all our folks do end up doing their internship in a public school, but upon graduation, if they want to work in a private school, that would certainly be perfectly fine.
Great, thanks, Phil. And just, we've talked about research. I guess one thing to emphasize is that we don't have a thesis, or we don't require a thesis as part of our graduate degree. But again, we do have directed studies so that students do engage in some research with our faculty. I think I noticed Dr. Pelias, who's one of our other faculty members. Martha, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your work and some of the research you've been conducting with students?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to introduce myself. I just want to say, for the record, I don't know if you have heard, but we are a very cohesive, tight group of faculty and students. We are known for getting along very well, the faculty as well as the students working together and supporting each other. And that's exemplary. It's exemplary because it's not typical of programs where they have a very individualized approach where students feel like they're alone. In our program, students work together and the faculty are very close. We work very close with them one-on-one. I wanted to say that. I know that probably has already been said, so I apologize because I came in late. I want to quickly say my area is child development. And I do kind of work like Dr. Shel Griffith, but more in the area of early infancy and the first 2 years of life, which are so critical for early interventions. And my work with my students is mainly, it has two facets: the experimental applied, which relates to translating the experimental work that is to figure out the questions that are very important to us. Like, let me give you an example. Bilingualism right now, we're looking at parents who speak mother-y speech or parent-y speech to their babies, and whether if they tend to do it in English, whereas their native language, let's say, is Spanish or Creole. And we're finding out that when they speak in their native language, their rate of vocal learning for their infants is accelerated, which is things that we need to find out about, to make recommendations in the applied work about, in the applied world, meaning in the natural environments, natural environments, about how parents should interact with their babies, in particular if the infants are already showing some markers for mainly autism and markers for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So that's one of the areas. I teach human development and focus on child development, precisely because I think school psychologists not only need to know about assessment, but they need to understand what is being assessed and why it's being assessed. So in some of these assessments, we have markers of normative performances, and we as developmental psychologists need to know what are the precursors and what is the organization of those repertoires before they move to more advanced repertoires. And so that's what I teach to my students, how to recognize the developmental trends that occur and the complexity of behavior when you tease it apart and try to teach in interventions different repertoires. And so I enjoy having students in my class, and I enjoy this program. I think it's a fantastic program, and I'm not trying to sell it to you. It's how I feel about it. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you, Martha. I'd like to, follow up real briefly on what you said. And we do have four, core faculty members, as you can see: Dr. Pham, Dr. Griffin, Dr. Pelias, and myself. And we also have a number of core adjuncts. And the adjuncts are professional school psychologists, mostly in Miami-Dade County Public Schools or Broward County Public Schools, as well as some that are across the nation. We have one from, Massachusetts, for example, that teaches online. And so not only are you going to get an education from your core faculty, but you really get a different type and style of education from those professionals that are working as school psychologists on a daily basis. And I think this really adds something special to our program. And as Dr. Pelias was also saying, we have a tight-knit group. Our faculty are, we get along great, which is, I think, not necessarily the case in some situations. And we also really work to establish a very formidable and cohesive cohort. So each group that comes in year by year, they seem to connect well with each other. And we're not a competitive program. Once you're in, we're a very cooperative program, and we work cooperatively, especially the students really support each other, as they go through a pretty rigorous curriculum.
Yeah, we do have faculty from the research and methodology, like Dr. Tiberio Garza also that is with us, and they're extremely supportive of students for their projects when they go through their independent research. So we're very happy in a nutshell. So.
Yeah, I completely concur. And just to add it, I like how Dr. Lazarus, at least when I first started at FIU, one of the things he says or describes the program as we're like a boutique program in a large R1 or research university. So you get a lot of resources in terms of the research, our libraries, we have grants, and we'll talk more about our funding and supporting students traveling to conferences. But we also emphasize working with you individually to make sure you're attaining competencies, because we do we're invested in you in terms of building great competent school psychologists. So that's part of the reason for why we have a small program. And I think one of the questions I noticed was how many students we admit or what is our cohort. 12 to 15 is a good size for us, given our faculty numbers, only because we want to provide individualized attention, mentoring, advising to you. So, all right. Well, I know there were questions about admissions, so I guess we could talk about that. So our admissions deadline is January 15. We only admit once a year. In the past, we have admitted multiple times, but given that we have an increase in number of applications, and to develop more of a cohort model, meaning students take the same courses each year or semester, we did decide to do once a year admissions. So we only do fall admissions, and we do have interviews. So admission deadline is January 15, and then we sift through the applications. We have our admissions committee, which are our core faculty, and we invite select number for interviews. So we haven't really talked about the modality. I think we'll probably continue to do virtual. That's what we've been doing the past 3 years. So we'll have more updates as we think more about our interview day. In terms of the application requirements, all of this is on our website, but you can see what is required. We do require at least a 3.2 GPA in the last 60 upper division credit hours. If you have a master's, that actually supersedes your undergrad GPA. So, but yeah, any undergraduate or graduate courses, those would be part of your application. We don't require any exams. If you want to submit your GRE scores, that's fine, but we do not require that. We do require applicant statement or letter of intent. So we do outline sort of specific questions on our website pertaining to why are you interested in school psychology, what have been your experiences working with children and adolescents, for example. So anything that you can tell us about why you would be a good fit for our program, and your goals as a school psychologist would help us. And also if you find that maybe there's any either deficiencies or things that you would want us to know why we would select you, that would be a good opportunity to include that in your statement. And I mean, I think another question related to that I often get is how long? I think we've suggested maybe, 1,500, 2,000 words, or maybe 3 to 4 pages would be sufficient, double space. So yeah, so just enough for us to understand who you are, what your goals are, and how, your uniqueness in terms of your skills and your experiences. Thanks. Yeah, Leslie shared the information on missions on our webpage, which will detail some of the specific questions. And letters of recommendation, I think Dr. Lazarus addressed this in one of the chat questions. 3 letters of recommendation. We do prefer faculty, but supervisors would be fine. Anyone that can attest to your ability to succeed in graduate school. That's part of the reason for why we prefer faculty. But if supervisors can also share based on that, that would be helpful. Resume or CV. We do require a foundation of undergrad psychology. So this is where we do indicate 15 credit hours of psychology courses. It could be undergrad or graduate level if you have a master's, including a research methods course or statistics course. So if you are a psychology minor or major, this likely would satisfy it. Sometimes research methods or statistics could be in other departments or in education. So that is a requirement as part of the admission. We will also talk a little bit about funding, which are projects, DIG, Crystal. If students or applicants are interested, there is another form, which is also on our web pages for those projects. Are there any questions? We'll stop there because I know there are often a few questions related to admissions. Any questions?
Answer Carolina's question about
Oh.
directed study on the chat and what it is and what it entails. I didn't want to go much in depth because I think faculty and students have some leverage in choosing this, but if you want to talk about it, Andy.
Yeah, sure. So a directed study is where you're working one-on-one with a faculty member. So it is flexible in the sense of if you're interested in assisting with a faculty member's research, that is your directed study. So we only require 1 semester. You can definitely do more if you want to continue with projects and attain more credit hours related to that. But it's assisting with faculty or even developing a research that faculty can assist you, whether for a poster or a potential publication, maybe for a newsletter or for a journal article. It's quite flexible in that sense. So you're just registering as a course with a faculty member and receiving guidance and supervision in terms of a research project or proposal. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
I'd like to comment real quickly in regard to the 15 credit hours of psychology. So say if you're applying in January or before January, and you only say have 9 hours of psychology, they don't have to be completed by the time of your application. So say if you're planning on taking 6 more hours of psychology in the spring, then that would be perfectly acceptable. We just want you to graduate with 15 hours. From my own standpoint, I prefer 18. So going a little bit beyond the minimum, I think, can also be helpful to you.
Absolutely. And if you're planning on taking additional psychology credit hours, indicate that in your statement too. So at least we know that you're planning on finishing the 15 or 18 credit hours. Great point. All right. So yeah, feel free if there are other questions, definitely write in the chat. Otherwise, I know sometimes questions relating to financial support comes up. So we'll share in terms of financial support through our federal grants as well as assistantships that we offer within our department. So we do have 2 funded grants, which would provide tuition scholarships or waivers as it relates to supporting K-12 students in the school. So we're building courses related to like bilingual assessment, culture responsive services. So that's one of our goals of the project, which is culture responsive youth services and teaching adaptation and language, or Crystal. And so for students who are interested in being part of that, select students would receive full tuition, as well as the stipend across 3 years, which is a total of $24,000. I think with the second cohort, we already have our first cohort. Our second cohort would have, I think, $3,000 the first year, $8,000 in the second year, and then the third year would be what's left, $13,000. So that would be the $24,000. We also are trying to build more interdisciplinary mentorship. So with faculty outside of school psychology, obviously you'll have mentors and advisors within our program, but also connecting with other faculty whose goals are aligned with the project. Virtual seminars, we do have conference travel support. We've allocated about $1,000 for travel support for students for each year. And for those who are bilingual, again, we're developing a bilingual assessment course currently. So that is something we are trying to develop for next fall. And because of the monies that we're able to allocate, the funding is available for 6 students. And this is only for full-time, just because of how our budget works. So it's 6 students to complete within 3 years. Our other project is a little bit more flexible, actually to some degree, it's Project Dig, where we do allow part-time students to be part of this project. However, there is sort of a stipulation that your internship would be in Miami-Dade Public Schools. So this is in partnership with Miami-Dade Schools. It's the 3rd largest school district in the country. And so it is a $6 million 5-year project, which started this year. And so we were able to provide tuition scholarships as well as paid practicum, field practicum, and internship. But it's only in Miami-Dade schools. So your field practicum and internship, because it's in partnership with the district, that is sort of the pipeline. Similar to Crystal, we do provide conference and travel support. Right now it's $1,000 per year. There may be more given available budget, as well as this is a collaboration with also the School of Social Work here at FIU. And so a good number of our colleagues within social work and their students are part of this grant. And so we're providing tuition waivers as well as paid practicum internships as well. And we've had seminars. Dr. Lazarus led one of our seminars for both the school psychology students and social work relating to trauma-informed schools, which is wonderful. And as I mentioned, enrollment can be full-time or part-time, although I did indicate no longer than 4 years, only because it's a 5-year grant. And so if you go beyond the 4 years, we can't really guarantee funding afterwards. So just be mindful for that. And we do have enough, at least for now, for admitting 7 to 8 students to be supported by the project. Oh, yes, you can apply either to both Project Dig and Crystal. So you can't get both, but we'll select based on our committee, and we'll select based on your qualifications. But yeah, you can definitely apply to both, or any type of funding that's available. So that is Project Dig. And in addition, we do offer graduate assistances. Now, this is more on a very limited basis. This is offered through our department as well as our College of Arts, Sciences, and Education. So graduate assistantships require full-time enrollment, at least 9 credit hours in fall and spring, and 6 credit hours in the summer. And it requires work for 20 hours a week with a faculty member. So we have one first-year student who is a graduate assistant, and she's working with Dr. Griffith right now. Stipends range from $20,000 to $25,000 per year or 12 months. Again, for 20 hours of work. There are partial health benefits, and working with faculty on primarily research or any program related tasks. And as I mentioned, must enroll full time. Historically, we were able to provide more assistantships. Right now, I think it's kind of dwindled a bit, but probably at least 1 or 2 we are able to support. So there is a separate application, but we typically recommend if you are admitted to the program and express interest in assistantship, that is usually that's the time to apply, sometime in January or February, because a lot of the decisions for fall tend to happen a little bit later, like in later spring semester.
And if you are applying for both Project Dig and Project Crystal, you can have a discussion with our faculty, and we would advise you in terms of your particular circumstances, which program may be the best fit for you.
Absolutely.
But you can apply to both. Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about financial support. And I guess just why FIU, I think our faculty have shared some of it. I think the only thing we haven't really talked about is the student organization. So maybe Leslie, do you want to share a little bit about SPSA?
Sure. So we have the SPSA, the School Psychology Student Association, that we currently have each member of the cohort contributes to or becomes a member of voluntarily. And so through this, through SBSA, you're able to work more with your cohort, and you're able to participate in more community service projects, such as Feeding South Florida. That's something that we did last year, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again this year. And, you know, a lot of other great opportunities within like the Social Justice Committee. And yes, so right now, I think that we have different members of the cohort who are in charge. So there is an e-board, and then there is a SBSA JEDI committee, which is the Social Justice Committee, that takes part in different activities. But it's a very enriching experience, and I would definitely recommend any school psychology student to join, because a lot of resources are available for you, and support is available to you through joining this organization. So.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so it's entirely student-led, which is great. So, and I think they're also, as Leslie mentioned, doing more cohesive in terms of peer mentorships, which is wonderful. So, so that's the School Psychology Student Association. So that is, I think, a little bit of what we have in terms of our program. We are welcome to entertain any more questions. And Amanda, I forgot to include your name, but if you want to include your email in the chat, if people have questions, they're more than welcome to reach out. But are there any questions that we can address?
There's a question back at the top of the chat that I think we may have missed about the kind of structure of classes and things like that as people are trying to organize their life. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Andy, or I can.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so we mostly at this time, most of the main classes are occurring in the evening, so 5 to 7:40-ish. Several times a week you would have, depending on the number of classes you're taking per semester. There are also a few classes that are online that are scattered in there and have some other schedules, but for the most part, our program is conducive to those who have some sort of work during the day, even though all of the caveats about, you know, the difficulty of working full-time and attempting to do this program full-time, those still stand, but most of our classes are in the evenings to accommodate that.
Any other questions we can address? Yeah, I think Leslie also included a link. There is a survey, or sort of a feedback survey, about our information session today. So if you have a chance to fill it out, that would be wonderful. Let's see. Oh yeah, I guess just a little bit about our pictures. Those are our students. And the bottom picture is with Dr. Frank Worrell, who was our past APA president. So he was one of our colloquium speakers at FIU. He's at UC Berkeley, and it was 1 week before COVID started. So, but yeah, he gave a wonderful presentation on gifted students. That's one of his areas of expertise. So we try to invite speakers to give presentation seminars to our students.
Dr. Pam, one quick question.
Yeah.
One quick question, and again, I apologize because you might have said this. Did you talk to the students, potential students, about the placement, the percentage of the students that graduate from our program and find jobs?
Yep, we did. So, absolutely.
Sure.
In terms of job outlook, yes, our students have been successful in job placements in schools. A select number, if they opt to pursue doctoral study, have been successful too. Yeah. And they get jobs all over the country. So we train our students well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just like to say that this is probably the most challenging time to be a school psychologist. And it's a very important time to be a school psychologist. We have been impacted by mental health problems in youth, especially for the last 20 years, and even more so since the impact of COVID-19. So if this is your purpose to really help children and youth, this is a wonderful time for you, and you are definitely needed. We need every school psychologist that we can get. And you also have a wonderful opportunity, you know, that we've established for you in regard to different grants. because for the first 30 years of our program, we didn't really have many full-time grants for students. And now, you have an opportunity to get a funded education. So if you really are engaged in this, I would advise you to apply and apply fairly quickly.
Any other questions? All right. Well, yeah, if you can complete the link, I think, again, Leslyn put it in the chat. That'd be wonderful. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending our information session. And feel free to reach out to any of us in terms of our emails. I think we're very much accessible. I'm more than happy to meet individually with potential students. So otherwise, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you again for joining our information session for our school psych program.
And thank you for running it.
Thank you, Dr. Fan.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Oh, and we'll stop recording. So once I figure out how to do that.